life story for our viewers can size you up a little.
Yeah, well, I had been coming to Montana as a teenager. I had relatives up in the Conrad area, and so always knew I kind of wanted to get here. And then in college, my girlfriend had Montana ties, and so she was coming here. And so I actually followed her here. She didn't stay very long, but I followed her here and took a job with the Billings Animal Shelter working for Gene Kaiser, and was here the next 5 years and decided this is where I wanted to live.
You have always had a love for animals, obviously, and
Yes.
so you had to figure out a niche where you could make a living out of this.
Yes, yes indeed.
And you said you've been in Billings for most of your time here in Montana, with a brief respite out to the Tri-Cities.
Yeah, I went to the Tri-Cities, Washington, and ran a little bi-county humane society there. And then as soon as the opportunity presented itself, I got back to Montana.
Tell us about the Humane Society, because people have heard about that. They associate it, I'm sure, with the local animal shelter.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit more how you got hooked up with them.
Well, the Humane Society of the United States is a national nonprofit. We do have a number of animal care facilities around the country, but we're not in charge of local humane societies. They have their own boards of directors. Okay. So we're not a parent organization, we're just a helpful organization. And I work in the wildlife department, have for quite some time. So I say I work for the Humane Society, but my job is really to work toward a more humane society. So it's not just dogs and cats, it's not just Montana, it's pretty much the broad spectrum of any critter, any crisis.
Any critter, any crisis. Dave just has an amazing story. You may have seen, we've done some news articles with Dave recently since he's been back from Puerto Rico. But you responded to all these hurricanes, beginning with Hurricane Harvey in Houston, and I think back a few years as well. You've kind of become the go-to guy. How do you become the senior advisor for wildlife response? That's something you haven't had all that long, about 2.5 years or so.
Yeah. I started working in support of shelters. So I was here as the regional director for Montana, Wyoming, and Idaho, but I've always gravitated towards wildlife projects. And it just was slowly evolving to where about 6 years ago I started doing all wildlife. And then the senior director position came up to try to get me focused on 3 or 4 things: rescues, disasters, large-scale animal capture projects, and contraception. I do a lot of deer and horse contraception projects with PZP, which is made right here at the Science and Conservation Center in Billings, Montana.
Amazing. So again, it's a very small world in all of our vocations these days.
Yes.
So where do you find the time? Because I was just looking, we were looking at Dave's Facebook page, and if you go on there, Dave Pauli Billings Facebook, I mean, you have chickens you've taken in, you have a desert tortoise here, what's it called, a gopher tortoise, and you traveled all the way to Missoula to help save this tortoise. Tell us about that.
Yeah, this is kind of a unique story. I do a lot of wildlife rescue and rehab, and this will be a permanent addition to my rehab animals. And it's tiny. It looks like a yearling or an old hatchling, but it's actually 20+ years old. And it was owned by a gentleman who had another tortoise, and they really were deprived of nutrition for whatever reason. And that gentleman was just went to a care facility for dementia. And so his family discovered those tortoises, which had been pretty much living on their own. So he's got some problems. He's got some beak problems. He's got some shell issues. But I think slowly and slowly I can bring him around to having a pretty normal diet and a somewhat normal lifestyle for a
what's the life expectancy of a gopher?
Gopher tortoises actually can live 5-6 decades, so they can live quite a while. But this turtle really should be dinner plate size, and he's just tiny.
Yeah, you really can't tell from the pictures, other than your hands are in there. But when I hear he's supposed to be dinner plate size, that kind of puts it in perspective.
Yes, yeah. So he is very negatively impacted, and his beak is deformed, and I think we can bring that all around. So, you know, I might have him another 2 years or another 20 years, whatever whatever he decides, exactly.
But he's just one of. You have a bat that you recently nursed, a bat girl you called her.
Yeah, the bat was just soft released, which is difficult in the winter. She may indeed still be living in my chicken loft up with some bushy-tailed wood rats, but I gave her the choice because she was very feisty, and she was hypothermic. I think almost dead when I got her. And so yeah, most critters come to me are not permanent residents. It's just short-term rehab, and most of the time I try to get them to a specialist, somebody who deals with that species, because I really am a generalist, but I've done it long enough that I can get most things to at least improve.
It must be a very interesting thing when Dave invites you over for dinner, because
yeah,
not only a bat, you nursed several porcupines back to health. Yeah. There's raccoons there, yeah. Ducks. I saw you released a few ducks.
Yes.
Even coyotes and weasels is
yes.
what they're saying. So
yes.
never a dull moment in the Pauli household.
It's always interesting. Every day is different. Every one of those critters teaches me something. I mean, it's pretty amazing. I think I know a species pretty well, and then I meet a new animal, and it re-educates me that I don't know so much.
Amazing. So did you get your college degree in this line of work?
No. Actually, my degrees are in agricultural journalism and agricultural economics. But I've never really worked in either of those, because even when I went to college, I had a business in Madison, Wisconsin called Humane Animal Controls.
I see.
Bats out of attics, raccoons out of chimneys, that type of stuff. So I've been doing it a while.
How often do you get called on for those types of things in Montana?
I still get called. And when I'm in town, I respond. If I can, I'll go try to help it, or at least talk them through. The Audubon Center just had a deer fall through their ice, and I was on the phone with them, and they did an outstanding job getting that deer out on the shelf and onto the shore, and then leaving the deer make decisions. So a lot of times it's just talking to people. Recently, I had a call from a woman in New Hampshire who had a friend in Haiti. And I was in Haiti for the
right.
earthquake, and so I knew one person in Haiti, one vet, and this woman called me from a Facebook page and said, "There's an injured shorebird, endangered bird, a petrel. Can you help?" And I texted the vet in Haiti, and she was about 20 minutes from there, and she went and got it, and the next day released it. It was just stunned. But Haiti, New Hampshire, Billings, Haiti, the internet does wonderful things.
That's awesome. So the question was, where do you find the time? And when you go, who takes care of all the animals that you're house sitting for?
Well, my youngest daughter just graduated with a wildlife biology degree from Missoula.
Okay.
And she's back in the nest for a while, so that allows me to take on a few additional projects. Yeah. And she's very good about that. And my wife is outstanding as long as it's not a reptile or a rodent. All the rest of the stuff she's happy with, but she's not real big on rats and loves squirrels, but not real big on rats and snakes.
I read where you were supposed to get a snake with the tortoise, but that didn't happen.
It didn't happen because the home that it was going to temporarily fell through. We're still looking for a home for that snake.
Just a fascinating line of work you're in.
It's pretty cool.
As you said, never a dull moment. And again, his Facebook page is really entertaining to look through. What's the most fascinating recent wildlife story before we get into responding to these hurricane and animal rescues down there?
Well, this year I did. I try not to take on a lot of animals in the spring, but there was an overabundance of raccoons, and so I got some orphaned raccoons from 4 or 5 different spots, and I do a mentor coon project where I capture a wild raccoon and introduce it and let it imprint, and then release them all with the wild raccoon. So I think I had 8 babies and 1 mama. And that's pretty interesting, because you see that I cannot teach a raccoon how to eat a crayfish. I mean, I just don't know how to teach it. But a wild raccoon teaches them that in a minute.
Huh.
I used to chase my raccoons into a pen every night and try to make them, every day, and try to make them nocturnal. And it really didn't work. But a wild raccoon teaches them to be nocturnal in 2 days. So that's probably my biggest, it's about the 4th year I've done that, where I let a wild raccoon do the training that I just simply couldn't do. And then there's that bonding too, and
right.
they have a mentor when they're released. So that's pretty unique.
Well, I would say very unique, and the bonding thing is what would get me, because I would get attached to these animals. And I'm sure you do. But so how did you get over that, or is it a case by case basis?
Well, it's always my wife is my litmus test. If I start talking about building a bigger cage for something, or building a hibernaculum for an animal, she'll go, I thought this was just a 6-week thing, or 6, So I stretch some out because some animals are just so interesting, you can learn so much. But the reality is, wildlife belongs in the wild.
Right.
Or if it can't be put in the wild, it belongs in a good forever home, a facility that puts the animal first, a sanctuary, a zoo, a scientific facility, anybody that can provide for that animal for the rest of its life.
Interesting. We're going to talk to you here in just a second about your animal rescue stories. If you're just joining us here on Face the State, fascinating discussion this morning with Dave Pauli, the Senior Advisor on Wildlife Response and Policy with the Humane Society of the United States. Dave has been with the Humane Society for 27 years, and we're happy that he makes his living here in Billings, Montana, and has for many, many years, and is really the go-to guy when it comes to animal rescues. But not just here, around the country. Tell us about how you got into this, because I read something that said, when people lose their homes in these horrific storms, so do the animals. Yes. And they're kind of in the same boat, same situation that the humans are in.
Yeah, Jay, there's two good comments there. The first is that, like in this most recent Maria, the first 4 days we were there, we did human rescue. We took out rice and beans, we provided personal hygiene items and batteries, and pretty much because when you help the people, you're helping the animals. When that immediate need is met, and then we start doing pet food and vaccinations, we're helping the animals, but we're still helping the people. So no matter what you do when you respond, you're helping the community prepare to get through something as tough as what they're going through right now.
And so then you had to change your mission. You went from animal rescue to, well, we need to focus on the humans here, and then it was kind of a dual mission for a while.
Exactly, yeah. We were unusual and fortunate in that we had a private pilot that could bring in supplies every day, small enough to land in Vieques, because commercial craft still aren't landing, they're big ones. And so we were able to get stuff to either Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and have a plane bring it to San Juan and then fly it over on our helicopter, or we just bring in stuff. So, I mean, it is amazing. You don't, when you make a list of disaster response supplies, you don't think about coloring books and crayons. But if you have a family with 5 kids and they've got no power and they've got no water, they need stuff to keep them busy.
Right.
So, coloring book and crayons, or a little solar batteryless lantern, means the world to these families. Mosquito netting means the world to these families because they're living on their porches and they've got all their cousins there. And so yeah, it's those little things that really make a difference. And providing pet food was a big one because there was none available locally. That was not the priority for the grocery stores to bring in pet food. So so we filled the niche. When the need was there, we were able to help.
And you're about to go back again to Vieques, you say, to
yeah, I'm leaving the 28th and come back December. I usually leave it open, so the 10th, 11th, and 12th. And here we're doing a huge spay-neuter clinic, probably 500-600 animals, but I'm running horse field clinics. So we're doing horse vaccinations. We're doing some geldings, which is something we normally wouldn't do, but it's what the community is asking for. They're saying that because of the disaster, because of studs being loose, there's more problems with loose studs. So because that's what they asked for, that's what we're going to provide. And we'll have a couple teams doing that.
You'll be able to, I guess, size up the situation in Puerto Rico this time compared to the last time. But just share with our viewers, if you would, the situation that you encountered down in Puerto Rico, because you were saying there's the latest news reports about the amount of people that have died since the hurricane hit due to a lack of power and medical help. It's just staggering.
It's always a disaster after the disaster. And in this case, you could multiply that several times, because first they got hit with Irma, and Irma pretty well flattened Vieques and hit Puerto Rico proper fairly strongly. And then people try to recover. They get up and put tarps on the roofs, and they try to get going. 12 days later, Maria came in with a vengeance, and all the trees that were protecting some areas were already gone. So it came in, poured tons of water, and all those tarps collapsed and collapsed in buildings, and pretty much any wood structure, any stick structure, was devastated by those two storms, and many of the brick and mortar structures were damaged. So I think the initial was 80% of structures were negatively impacted. But the key there was this island is dependent upon the motherland on Puerto Rico to supply water, electricity, and gasoline, and there was a shortage of gasoline. So although there's only 22,000 people on the island, that's still the consumption.
You said you're hearing there's still
there's
4
4-hour waits in line.
Wow.
Everybody's living on generators, which increases the gas. And you know, it's hot and humid there, and it's not good for people's attitudes to have to sit in line. And initially they had a limit on how much, $20 in gas. And you know, for a family with a generator running 24/7 because of diabetes or some other concern to keep, that's not a lot of gas. And so, yes, the complications from that, fires from people trying to jumpstart their electrical system, mold from all the water, it just really, people are living frugally and without much for 2 months.
And you're going back.
Yeah, I'm going back. I'm hooked. The Vieques people are amazing, resilient. I would say 90% of the people that I worked with, even though they had nothing, still offered me something, offered me rice or water, or if they were very fortunate, a cold water because they got some ice from somewhere. And they would offer, and I would just say, you know, thank you, but you really need to conserve that. And they'd also feed their animals, or come to me looking for horse feed or dog food or cat food, because animals were important to them and to their children. And so, yeah, I go back as long as they need me. As long as we have a mission and can do some good, I'll go back.
Maybe you saw the pictures the last time Dave came back. You brought what were they, five puppies with you?
Yes, and that was those puppies were born the day after Maria. Their owner's house was destroyed by Irma, and so they had to evacuate, left the island. And so a neighbor kind of took Mama San under her wing, not knowing that the next day she would have 6 puppies. So I only brought 5 puppies home. I left 1 puppy there with Mama so she wouldn't get mastitis and had, you know, didn't feel totally abandoned. And I'll get to go back and compare that pup to the 5 that we fattened and tamed, and see how they're doing. But the reality is those puppies would have been feral dogs. There's a lot of feral dogs on that island already, and they have a tough life. They basically live either by the kindness of a neighbor, or they catch iguanas to eat, or eat out of the garbage cans. It's a pretty tough life. So somebody asked me, you know, does bringing 5 puppies from Puerto Rico make any difference in the big picture? And I can just say, well, to those 5 dogs, it makes all the difference. And I think we took, the day I came back, we took 209 animals from Puerto Rico to Seattle. And that allows the local humane societies to have some capacity. So now they can go out, because they were all overflowing. So people would call them and say, I have to leave on a plane tomorrow, can you take my dogs? And they would have to say no. So, you know, that's important work too, to give the locals some capacity.
The gratification in your job must be overwhelming. I mean, it's like, yeah, I am making a difference. You know, it might be 1 puppy at a time, but we're making a difference.
Exactly, every day. And you know, the hugs from people are what really carry you through their appreciation for little things. Yeah, it's pretty rewarding. Depressing because some of the realities, and these storms were deadly to not just people and structures, but to wildlife. Most of the mongoose there went underground, which was not a good decision with a storm surge, and most of the iguanas went arboreal, went up in the trees, and they took a beating because of the wind. So you know, and the horses. We only know there's approximately 2,000 horses on the island. We only know of 6 fatalities. It's probably higher than that, but the horses got down in the lowland and put their butts to the wind and just fought it out.
Rode it out.
Yeah, we did see, you know, a lot of debris injuries. We had a horse with a broken jaw that got something blown into it that we were treating, and wire cuts, pretty common. But those are all treatable, you know.
Absolutely. So tell me how Hurricane Harvey was, because you also went to Texas, and then you took Hurricane Irma on the Florida side as well, and saw some of the devastation.
Irma, I was really doing evaluations on my way to San Juan, but Harvey, I was there 9 or 10 days, and I went to Rockport, Texas, which was where the landfall of the storm was, the storm surge. And it too was devastated. But there's a good contrast between Texas and Puerto Rico because the neighboring states poured in resources. And on day 2, we had people setting up food stands and taking care of people. We had things I've never seen in disasters. We had the Southern Baptists come in and set up a laundromat, not where you could wash clothes, but you could leave your clothes there and in the morning pick them up. I've never had, you know, so I mean, those are nice little benefits that we appreciate because at the end of the day, hand washing a shirt and a pair of pants is never fun. So that, you know, those kind of things. But I actually performed animal control there. Of the 6 animal control officers in Rockport, 5 of them lost their homes. So they were a hurting unit, I like to say. They just really, so I got to fulfill that. I got a county truck, I rode around, did rescues, helped people, did dog bite prevention, whatever was called on by animal control. We had a small team there, and we also did some transports from there and sent animals from their shelter to give them capacity. But it was another, the first 5 nights there, I slept in the county jail. I was in cell block.
By choice.
Yeah, by choice, yeah. And very happy to have it.
Yeah, really.
So we had a whole team that took over cell block C4, and it worked out pretty well. And then at the end of the week, we actually had somebody bring in an RV, and we could move out. And they needed to open their jail back up too. And I didn't want to share a cell with anybody. So
right. So sounds like totally 2 different experiences, even though the devastation, I'm sure, was on the same par. But Puerto Rico got 2 storms within 2 weeks.
2 storms, and then they have 3, you know, cherry picker trucks, electrical trucks for fixing. I bet in Texas I saw 350. I think the Montana Co-op sent a couple of trucks out to help.
Yep.
And so that's what mainland America does. It sends those kind of resources. So Texas could get power back in a week. Puerto Rico is in a world of hurt for power. In VA case, they're saying it might be another 4 months before they have an electrical grid.
Wow.
And you know, people that have a baby, people that need a refrigerator for medicine, even restaurants trying to open up, just the logistics of getting vegetables and having anything electrical is huge. So, but they are resilient, and every day it gets a little bit better.
And if someone's watching this morning and they want to help, I mean, there's a ton of places, but any suggestions from you on?
Well, you know, truly there are so many good organizations doing good work, and depending if they want to be specific to either a storm or to a location, you know, they can reach out on the internet and find good places. I, of course, know the Humane Society has done amazing work providing stuff, so I'd be foolish not to say there are opportunities. But they also can contact local animal groups and see if they need help, and they all do. So they could either go local, state, or national, and they could go, you know, from the Salvation Army to the Red Cross to any of the faith-based groups, any of the volunteer organizations active in disasters. You know, a little search on the web, and they'll have
right in touch.
Too many choices. Yeah, and people can contact me too if they have a really specific. I should tell you one story that Cody Rose, a 9-year-old girl in Helena, raised money for disaster relief. She raised $167. Her mom rounded it up to $200, and she called me and said, how can we get this on the ground so it helps animals? And and I said, well, here's your same thing. I gave her a whole list. I said, if none of those work, send it to me and I will deliver it to the need. So they gave me $200, and I gave $100 to the Vieques Animal Sanctuary and $100 to the Vieques Humane Society, both of which the recipients were in tears because of the efforts of a 9-year-old girl in Helena thinking of how she could help them.
Yeah.
So it's good stuff, and really cash. People always want to put together pet food and clothing and material things. For almost any group, cash is really the preferred donation because then they can get exactly what they need. In the example with dog food, I also was incident commander for Katrina, and we got in 87,000 different kinds of dog food, and it gives the dogs diarrhea because they never have a consistent diet. So people don't think about that. It's nice if we could work with a vendor and get one type. So cash would be the king.
Absolutely. What a fascinating job you have, and I really appreciate you taking the time. We've just got a couple minutes left. I want to ask you about a couple of other things. The Humane Society is also involved in, anything animals. Chronic wasting disease, just discovered a couple of cases.
Yes.
What can you tell us about that as the Humane Society all involved there?
A little bit, but definitely kudos to Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks for making that a priority, for getting a team down. Our role in chronic wasting disease is that mostly it was spread in the eastern part of the country from game farms, from canned hunting operations. So we tried to stop that. This one is really the feeding operations in Wyoming is the suspect. And we would also argue that's not sustainable. So on the ethical side, we try to promote things that would not start the disease. And then kudos to the department for getting down and monitoring and educating people how to have their animals tested and to just try to stop this. I mean, it's going to spread eventually, but we can really curtail that spread and slow it down.
Education is key.
Yes.
And finally, the whole removing of protections for elephants getting a lot of national news.
Yes.
And I see on your Facebook page there's some postings. So the president has...
Yeah, in an unusual move, the president
said, no, we're not going to remove the ban.
Yeah, he overrode the decision of the Fish and Wildlife Service, at least temporarily, until they can take another look at it. And it's a complex issue, and NHSUS and Zoo Montana, or Conservation Center, are involved in elephant contraception too. So we have that tie-in and that interest.
This is a ban against bringing
this is a ban against, for two countries, bringing in parts, which really the hunting community, or I should say the trophy community, is saying that their dollars are necessary to promote conservation, and the other community is saying, it's really tourism dollars that are going to drive protecting elephants. And so it is complex, but we're happy that President Trump took the time to look at this and then made a statement, and we think it will come down on what's in the best interest of the animal, which is really our goal.
Hope so.
Yeah.
Dave, thanks so much.
You bet, Jay. Pleasure.
Touch base when you get back from Puerto Rico for a third time. Dave Pauli, our guest from the U.S. Humane Society, here on Face the State. Fascinating morning discussion. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll talk to you again soon.
You've been watching Face the State, a presentation of MTN, the Montana Television Network.